What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? We got a great episode for you here today. Myself and Michael will be breaking down. What was that? Are we dancing? Michael, are we dancing?
Absolutely. First time in
Say
5
it ain't
years.
so. Yeah. NC State men's basketball back in the tournament for the first time in, would you say it was 5 years, Michael?
Yeah, 2018.
5 years. Yeah. So you got your dancing shoes? You got them ready?
I do. They're in the closet,
right.
but they're there.
Hey, knock that dust off,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Knock that dust off. NC State just announced about 2 hours ago, I would say, 2.5 hours ago, that we are firmly, all right, much to the speculation of a lot of people out there that are into basketball, much like myself, we are a number 11 seed in the South region. Just give me your first thoughts, Michael.
Yeah. Obviously, we match up with Creighton in the first round as a 11 versus 6 seed. If you follow me on Twitter, I put out the case for NC State this morning, and
you did.
And,
you hammered that thing home.
Yeah, I like to think the committee took a look at that, but who knows?
I feel like they did.
Maybe. But I that was my projection. that first or second 11 seed, not in Dayton, and that's where we ended up. We've got Creighton on Friday. What would we say? 4 p.m. on Friday.
4 p.m. Eastern Standard. Yep. On TNT on the CBS, on the home of CBS networks.
Yep.
So hopefully people out there have that cable package still.
I don't think so.
I don't. I am going to be streaming it since I don't have cable, but I have ways to get it. So, but yeah, we'll talk a little bit about NC State in the tournament, maybe just a little bit about the tournament in and of itself. Like we said, we do match up on the South region, South bracket, 11 seed against Creighton, and on our side of the bracket, when we survive in advance, right? Since we did coin that phrase in '83, we will be playing either Baylor or University of California, Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Which I believe is the school one of my friends went to. I believe she went to one of those Cal schools out there. People, we were talking about just a second ago, a lot of people thought that we were going to be, an 11 seed, bubble. I mean, we were bubble-ish, if you will.
Bubble-ish.
Bubble-ish. It's almost like a bubble gum, right? But we weren't in that play-in game. That honor went to Pitt.
I think that was part of it too. That I don't know, but I doubt the committee puts 2 conference members in the first
that's what
4,
I was thinking. Or at least on the same side where they would play each other. Because isn't there 2 11 seeds playing each other? Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because one was Pitt against Arizona State and one and
no, Arizona State, Nevada. Pitt plays Mississippi State.
There you go. Too many states.
Yeah,
but not the right
states.
Yeah. So we there was some people, myself included, that reading all the bracketologists. Everyone's a bracketologist nowadays that has a phone. I almost thought for a second we might have a Wolfpack versus Wolfpack matchup. I mean, it looked like it might happen there for a little bit. I saw it on a handful of brackets, but so we did thankfully avoid the first 4 in. Which is always, you don't want to have to play that extra game and then turn around and then travel to another site,
right?
Wherever that would have been.
Yeah.
But just kind of your initial thoughts on the 1 seeds. Anything stick out? Because on this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the whole thing. We'll give some predictions, and then of course we'll obviously break down our matchup. But we want to give you guys enough content out there because, we don't know a whole lot about Creighton. We've done about an hour and a half's worth of research on them. So we'll definitely do our best to kind of break that matchup down. But anyway, first thoughts on the seeding as a whole. Anything stand out?
Yeah. I think the 1 seeds are all pretty straightforward. I think Texas, who ended up as a 2 seed, might have had a good argument for the 1 seed over Kansas because they did beat them in the Big 12 championship. But if you look at Kansas's resume, I think they had like 15 quad 1 wins or something.
Yeah, they had a bunch. I think it was either like 15 or 17.
Yeah.
What kind of hurt them for not getting the number 1 overall seed was their quad 2s, where I think that's where Alabama or Houston caught them because I think it was Alabama overall number 1. I want to say Houston number 2, Kansas 3, and then Purdue 4 was the top. And if for folks that don't understand how they do it, they really just go down 1 through 68, and then that's where they just seed you based on the matrix of the bracket.
Right. It's not, they don't go by like, okay, who are our 7 seeds, who are our 8 seeds? They just rank them 168, and whoever falls in line that way, that's where they end up.
Yep. Because when I was looking at the brackets today, there was a secondary number, and I'm like, what is that number? And then they showed that where there was their overall seed, and I believe State was 42 or 43. I want to say.
Know. I'm trying to think. I think there's 48 at large. So last 4 would be 44. So 43. I think we were 42.
So, we were 42 or 43.
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that's what it was. So again, that's how we avoided the bubble. And. You know, in today's world with everyone's reactions on Twitter, you know, the one thing was like, well, how is State over Clemson? And, you know, just, and you said it before, you did a really good job just breaking down some resumes. But the interesting takeaway from all of that is State was the fourth best ACC team out of the 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we ended up being the 6th seed in the ACC. So that's where people kind of get their knickers in a wad there, where we actually are seeded better than Pitt, and then obviously Clemson didn't make it.
Didn't make it, yeah.
Yeah. I know. Do you have any thoughts on either of that? Again, I just think if you read resumes and you read strength of schedules, and as much as we hate the net and the quads and all of that, I mean, do you think it was right? I mean, you think they got it right in that regard?
I mean, yeah, it's, you know, because people like to hone in on one metric. Like NC State's has technically had 1 quad 1 win.
1 quad 1, that's right.
But, you know,
we would have had 2 had we not beat the pants off of Virginia Tech.
And the win over Miami, the ACC regular season champion, somehow doesn't count as a Q1 win. So
because it was at home. Had we wanted that on the road, that would have been a Q1.
Yeah, but even at home, it's like, come on. So
it's funny.
Yeah, you can't just look at a single metric, even if, you know, there's some bad ones out there. And, you know, it's whole body work, like we said. I know Clemson fans are upset. I would be upset too if I was them. 3-0 against State.
You can't lose to South Carolina. You can't lose. I think they lost to BYU, and they lost to a very bad
Loyola Chicago too.
Loyola Chicago, that was the one.
Who has been good, but Loyola Chicago won like I think single-digit games this year.
Yeah. So those are just games when you look back at it. Those are just games you have to have. Now they say you can't make the tournament necessarily in November, December, but you can sure play yourself into a hole, and that's what Clemson did, unfortunately. And they handled us. We had, obviously the bad matchup situation with them in the regular season and the tournament. But you have to go win the games you have to win. And I think the one thing, and I think this is still true, State did not end up with any quad 3 or quad 4 loss. Is that still a true statement?
Yep. Still worked out.
I kind of lost track at the end because everything just shuffles.
Moves,
But yeah.
And the other thing with Clemson is they did lose those bad games, but their strength of schedule was terrible. So you can't have both of that. You can't have a terrible strength of schedule and lose to those teams. Like NC State's strength of schedule was not the best. I think we were around 250, which is not great. But, we went 10-1 in non-conference with our only loss to Kansas. So you took care of business there. Yeah, on a neutral floor. So that's what hurt Clemson. Pitt, kind of the same thing. I think they had
same thing.
They had a couple bad losses.
Yeah, they had a couple bad losses, but they had some much better wins than we did. They're just a team that fell apart at the end. The last week and a half of the season, where they were the number 1 team in the ACC, and then they dropped all the way to 5th.
Yeah.
If
they had beat Miami that last weekend, they would have been the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament, but they ended up 5th. And that win against Miami probably would have clinched well, I guess they're still in, but they would have
gotten off of the first four in, or last four in, excuse me. Yeah. So the ACC, just kind of talk about the ACC a little bit. Virginia was a number 4 seed in our region. So they're there. Duke, your ACC postseason or your tournament champion finishes with a 5th seed. Miami, your regular season champion with a 5th seed. So that's not something we're used to in the ACC. Other than the last couple of years, that's kind of been a trend. Normally, you're a champion either in the regular season or tournament. It's usually a 1 or a 2. So that's different. And then we've already just talked about Pitt coming in as an 11 seed, but is in the first or the last 4 in.
Right.
So, I think thoughts on any of that?
I think, I think Clemson deserved to get in, but there was too much of a glaring issue with that strength of schedule for the committee to justify it. And then, so I think 5 was the correct number. You also got UNC hanging out there, but they had 1 Q1 win. Again, that's kind of like
interesting.
You had enough opportunities.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You look at a couple of opportunities had they won the game, that triple overtime loss to Alabama.
Yep.
They win that game, they're probably
Easy.
in.
Yeah.
And then there was another game that I was thinking about that day. It was a tough loss, like
Indiana, maybe.
Indiana, yeah, I want to say,
but
there was a couple where, they just fell a little short. And
right.
Okay, well, all right. Hey, how did that NIT bid go for them?
Well,
while we're on it,
they have declined the bid.
Oh, they have declined it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're moving on. always happy to throw a little shade in there, but I think Virginia's got an interesting matchup with Furman. I think that's 2 teams that play the same kind of watch paint dry on a wall.
Right.
That might be the first one to 25 wins that game.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup for Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to get a taste of their own medicine. And Furman's one of those schools. This is the thing that's always interesting about the tournament. Those double-digit seed teams are usually very senior or upperclassmen oriented. And you're going to see that with the ACC squads. Drake is another team that I think is going to give Miami problems. Miami's dealing with an injury that could hamper their movement in the tournament. Duke, I think Duke's going to have an easy time of it if I'm talking ACC schools.
Yeah.
They had, was it Colgate? I can't remember who they had.
First round, they have Oral Roberts.
Oral Roberts. I knew it was one of those smaller type schools. But Oral Roberts was a school that, has made some noise this year. And they played some quality opponents. So I don't think that's going to be an easy matchup for Duke, but I do think that they're catching lightning in a bottle right now, and I wouldn't want to play Duke.
No, I would not either. They are 40-1 to win the tournament, so that's pretty good odds if you're looking for a value.
And it's
pick.
funny, I bet if you had done that 2 months ago, it would have probably been like 80-1 or something like that. Like it would have been, they've just gotten right at the right time. So that's a little bit about the ACC. We just, obviously here at Tuffy Talk, we're an NC State podcast, but we also like to cover the ACC as a whole, just because, when some schools succeed, we all succeed, right? Because it's all about sharing that money, at least for now, and the revenue, right? So the further these teams go, the more money we make.
Yeah, but that is a good point. That's a real thing. Like we got a big chunk of change from Duke and UNC making the Final Four last year. Yeah, so it really is. Once your team is out, you really should be rooting for your conference.
Yeah.
Besides UNC.
I'll right. I mean, I will do like under the table golf clap just because they're making me money, but I will never publicly acknowledge that.
Yes.
But I mean, the money is real, and that's something that we value, especially. As the ACC goes, we're one of the
they need all they
paid
can
out
get.
conferences. Yeah, exactly. But just talking a little bit about, I guess we can switch over now and talk our bracket, our game. Again, we have Creighton out of the Big East. For anyone that doesn't know where Creighton is, it's in Omaha, Nebraska. It's one of those little square states in the middle of the country. They call flyover. So they're the Creighton Blue Jays. A preseason top 10 that didn't maybe quite live up to their hype, but they were number 9 in the preseason. But there were some schools also that didn't live up to the preseason hype. And
I wonder what those are.
We'll leave it at that. But just again, like we're saying, we're recording this on Sunday, March 12th, and we've only had the brackets out for a little over 2.5 hours, so we haven't been able to do a deep dive, but we wanted to at least get out some content this week because this tournament will get going really fast. But any initial thoughts, Michael, on Creighton that you've done?
Yeah. So I actually, before when we were talking about who we would match up with and being an 11 seed, I pointed out Creighton as one that I think could be a good matchup for us. Just for the fact that I think they are maybe a little, they're higher in the net than maybe they should be. They've got in Q1 they're 3-8. Their 3 wins are good wins though. They've got a home win against UConn, a neutral site win against Arkansas, and a home win against Xavier, who are all 3 solid teams.
Yeah, and I think they played Houston pretty tough, if I'm not mistaken.
Creighton, I don't see them. Houston on their sheet.
Did they not play?
They played Texas.
Maybe I looked at so many teams today.
They played at Texas, only lost by 5. They played neutral site against Arizona, so their non-conference was pretty good. Neutral site against Arizona, lost by 2 there. So they've played some top teams.
And now we do have a common opponent, and that's Butler.
Oh,
so
we do.
So just kind of, I looked at that. They blew them out both times. I think it was like 22 points each game.
Yeah.
So take what you want from that. Probably not a lot.
Yeah.
We did obviously beat Butler. What was it? It was so early, and it was in the Bahamas. What would it be? Like 15, 18?
I think it was around 15. But with Creighton, they're, like I was saying, they only 3 Q1 wins. And a losing record in Q1 and Q3, and Q1 and Q2. So I think a 6 seed may be a little high. I was kind of expecting them to be a 7.
So the committee put a lot of stock in the Big East.
Yeah,
they gave the Big East. I mean, Marquette was their best team. They got a number 2 seed, like you said, Xavier, UConn, Creighton. So it's not a dud conference by any stretch of the imagination.
But certainly that was just something that jumped out at me initially. Only 3 Q1 wins and a losing record in Q1 and Q2. I mean, I know that's better than ours, but not much better. And we barely snuck in, and they were solidly in as a 6 seed.
In. Yeah, exactly. So just kind of looking at their roster, they're a roster that basically gets all their points from their starting 5. Yep. They all average in double digits, which is not something that State does. So, there's something there. And obviously we don't know the status of Greg Gant right now. We don't know if Dusan is going to make a Superman appearance and show up in the tournament.
That'd be nice.
So we don't know. It would be nice, but we don't know, obviously what kind of contributions we're going to get from our bench because of that, right? Everyone gets bumped up. So I would say that the benches are going to be probably pretty equal. So this is going to be a game where it's going to come down to your starting 5 for sure. But their leading point getter is their center, Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's 7 foot.
Yeah.
7 foot, 7'1", depending on, I've seen him 7 foot, 7'1" in a couple of places.
Yeah.
So he's a big that, hey, let's be honest, we've struggled with bigs this year. And I don't think that's any stretch to say that.
No. The one positive thing I will say, he's only taken 17 threes on the year, so he's not going to force DJ to guard him out on the perimeter like a PJ Hall did.
Right.
So that should be somewhat encouraging.
Yes, for sure. But
before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
But he is their go-to person. So that's gonna be
shoots 71% from the field.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess it is pretty easy when you're that tall. You just drop it in.
Yeah, you just kind of just let it roll off the fingers and into the bucket. He is not their leading rebounder. Their leading rebounder is actually a guard. Baylor Shimerman, I guess. He's at 8.4 rebounds.
Wow.
They're a pretty good rebounding team from what I'm seeing on the stats that I'm looking at here. So that, but one thing we do well is our guards rebound really well too. Yeah. So that's something that we're going to need to make sure that we stay back and we don't just run up court on a shot. So we'll need to make sure our fundamentals are there. But they're a very balanced scoring team from their starting five. Their lowest two guys are 11.9 and their highest is 15.4. So they definitely share the ball really well.
And to go along with that, they're averaging 16 assists per game, which is that's a big number.
That's a big number. Their turnovers were high though. I saw they were double digits. I wanted to say I saw.
Okay, that's it. That's important because that's how
we make our money.
11 and a half turnovers per game. Yep. So that plays in our favor too.
It does. It does. But they shoot the ball at a pretty good clip as a team. They're in the 46, 47% range. From three, they're average 30, 35, 37%. So nothing that, like Clemson. My goodness, they shot over 50% from three of those two games. And I didn't think that was going to happen in both games, back-to-back games, but it did.
Yeah.
So, looking they average 76.6 points a game. I have I have state here as well.
We're right around there. I think maybe a little more.
Yeah, I want to say we're right around that as well from a team standpoint. 78.2.
Okay.
So I think we'd like to both get up and go. That's a decent amount of points in college basketball.
Yep. On that note, looking at some kind of the advanced metrics.
Sure.
You mentioned offensively they're ranked 28th per KenPom. State is 37th. Defensively, they are ranked 15th, and State is 85th. So there's a little.
We struggle with teams that play defense. Let's be real. The other thing I'll throw at you too is if this thing gets into a free throw shooting contest, they're a really good free throw shooting team. They're around 78% as a team.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So
seem like a team.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. And much like the women's, and we'll have an episode on them too coming out on their tournament. They just got announced here a few minutes ago. It's kind of like Forrest Gump's mom. You never know what you're going to get. Life's like basketball is like a box of chocolates, and so I just don't know what team we're going to get with State. Are we going to get that Jarkel Joyner, Terquavion Smith 50-point outburst, or are we going to get where they score 27 points?
Right.
I just don't know. It's mind-boggling. We have the ability to play with anyone. Look at what we did with Kansas. In the Bahamas, I think we lost by 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then we get blown out by Clemson in 3 games. It's a 60-point differential in 3 games. So I honestly, it's so hard to handicap this team. And I know. What are your thoughts on that? Because we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know which version of the team we're going to get.
Yeah, that's tough. I think it really is the teams that play that pack line defense, stop the drives. That's where we struggle the most with. The 3 games against Clemson, and then the game against UVA. I really think those 4 games, it was only 2 teams, but those 4 games were our worst of the season. Almost every other game.
39% of our losses.
Yeah. All our other losses were pretty close. You lost 13 at UNC,
Syracuse. And we lost to Miami. We blew a lead, and then we lost to Kansas.
Duke was close. Duke. Kansas was close. Pitt was for as bad as we shot that game against Pitt. We only lost by 8,
6 or 8.
Yeah. So, I obviously like you said, we're recording this soon after. Probably go watch some Creighton, see how they play, see what that matchup's going to look like.
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
I mean, it's in Denver, so we're probably not going to get a lot of state fans there. It's a little bit closer for Creighton, so they'll probably have a little bit of an edge on their fans. I don't know how well Creighton fans travel. They pretty much have basketball. That's really their bread and butter sport. But I don't really. The brackets are so weird now. Like there's like the way they used to do it is like everyone from your bracket would show up at the same location, but now they have like cross pollination of brackets where you'll have some like South games there, and I think there's some East games there. So I don't even know who's even playing there. So I don't even know if you'll get like the one thing that I always enjoyed. I always loved telling this story is I was at the very first game where a 15 beat a 2. That was Richmond beating Syracuse, and that was played up at Cole Fieldhouse up in Maryland, their old arena before they moved over to the Xfinity Center. And that Syracuse team was loaded, but it was the very last game of the night. Richmond had a nice little fan base because it's not far from College Park, but all of the fans ended up being Richmond fans. And so it was like Richmond playing a home game. And that's the neat thing about the tournaments, right? You'll get fan bases rooting for underdogs or teams that, they have a natural rivalry with, or they just maybe hate that color. Like people start cheering for the weirdest things. So I always look at that as just kind of a like, okay, do you have the ability to get, win over the home crowd or the home arena fans?
So you mentioned it earlier. Baylor, UC Santa Barbara is the other.
Right. That's who we would play.
And that one's in Denver. The other little pod that's in Denver is Gonzaga versus Grand Canyon, and then TCU versus the Arizona State Nevada winner from the first four
from the play-in. Yeah. So it's really no East Coast cooking.
No, there, that's a lot of West Coast teams.
A lot of West Coast teams. Yeah, we are the only outlier there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I don't know. I'm just trying to find like any kind of like edge, if you will, to give our boys. I don't know. It's gonna be a fight. I definitely see us being able to win this game. Like I wouldn't like it's not like some monumental 16-1, that's only happened one time. And honestly, and I think we talked about this, and I know you've talked about this on Twitter. It was almost kind of a blessing that we got off that 8-9 line. Yeah. Right? Like,
it's tough. The only one seed that I feel like is really vulnerable is Purdue.
I agree.
Maybe that might just be because we played them close last year with our worst team ever, so I feel good about playing them this year. But it kind of along the same lines that the other, like Kansas looks. Although we did play close with Kansas,
we played them well, but that was earlier in the season. Yeah. Like again, like we've gotten better, but I mean they've gotten right.
With Dusan, yeah. So like you said, it's just better to avoid that.
Until you have to, even if you really have to.
Yeah, even if you have a little tougher matchup in the first round, I don't hate it being on that 11. Not having to play in Dayton, that was a big thing because obviously that's just an extra game you get.
The logistics of it just stink. Like you literally have to leave like tomorrow.
Yeah, to play Tuesday.
Or
Wednesday, but
I don't know which games they do which, but but you would have then logistically had to just get to Dayton and then get to your other site, which would have been probably Denver, because you said that matchup is feeding into there. And then I don't know where the other one is feeding at. I lost track of it. But so let's just talk a little bit about the South region some more. So say we survive in advance, we get to Creighton, we get through Creighton, then we probably are going to play Baylor. Obviously. And then just looking a little bit further down, you got Missouri and Utah State, you got Arizona and Princeton kind of round out our bottom half of the bracket before you would play the top half in a Sweet 16. I'm sorry, no, an Elite 8.
Yeah.
So,
let's go. Who do you like for Sweet 16? So 4
out
teams
of our bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Alabama holds. But they've got some other issues going on that we really don't need to discuss on this podcast. But, if for whatever reason that kid gets pulled, Miller gets pulled, all bets are off.
Right.
So I don't think anything's going to happen with that situation. But
I think if it would have, it would have already.
I agree, unless something crazy, something comes up, in the investigation. But I think he's going to end up playing through. So I like them to probably get to the Sweet 16. I don't know, probably Virginia. I don't know. Virginia's just an odd team. If their defense is on and they're shooting, they're unstoppable. But if they're not getting one or the other, they're in trouble.
That's how they were the first team to lose to a 16 seed. That's Correct. The style of play. It will win you a lot of games if it's done right, but it leaves the margin for error very, very slim.
Correct. So, but if I had to get I don't know, College of Charleston's been a nice story this year.
I don't
getting in.
If you told me Charleston beat San Diego State and Furman beat Virginia, both those upsets in the first round, I wouldn't be that. Me. Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised either.
It wouldn't.
Yeah.
Now it would throw chaos into it, and we all love chaos in March Madness. So, again, we keep saying this, the bracket's only been out for a few hours, so these West Coast teams in these small schools, it's really hard to get a feel for them.
Yeah.
Unless you've happened to play them or they've pulled up some kind of big upset during the regular season. I know nothing about San Diego State, I'll be honest, because they play at 1 o'clock in the morning our time here on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I will say the one thing about this tournament, unlike past years, is yes, you have Alabama, but you don't have that dominant team that we're so used to and accustomed to. Number one has flipped. I don't know, 4 or 5 times this year at least, maybe more.
Yeah,
probably.
It's been Bama, different teams. It's been Houston, it's been Kansas. I think it's been Purdue.
Yeah. I don't know if Texas ever got there.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But it's been 4 or 5 teams this year. So, normally it's 1 or 2 teams, but it's gotten a little bit out there. And then you've got teams that have just gotten on nice runs. Your Penn State's had a nice run. They were on the bubble 2 weeks ago, and they got a 10.
Yeah, which
with a nice showing.
That goes back to the committee not caring about conference tourney because they made it to the finals and barely lost to Purdue, but they're still a 10 seed. So
right.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, let's wrap this up. But, obviously we're going to pick State probably win at least 1 game or 2. But realistically, do you have a Final Four that you want to drop?
Oh, a Final Four already? Going that far?
I mean, go big or go home.
All right, I'll go Bama from our region. It's just hard to pick against the number 1 overall seed. From the Midwest... I'll go Texas from the Midwest.
Okay.
They're that 2 seed over Houston. West, you've got Kansas, UCLA. I'll go Kansas there as well.
Okay.
And then in the East, you got Purdue, Marquette. I'll go Duke as the 5 seed in the East.
Wow. Okay.
I think they're playing really well right now.
Yeah.
And I think I think they've got an easy path. They play Oral Roberts. If they can get past Oral Roberts, Tennessee is the 4 seed there. But Tennessee
Memphis is hot.
Memphis, that could be a tough one. Yeah, Memphis
is a hot team. They just beat Houston.
Yeah, they're better than an 8 seed. I wouldn't be surprised to see them beat Purdue. Tennessee, Duke would play Tennessee in the second round most likely, but Tennessee lost one of their best players to injury in the SEC tournament.
Point guard. Yep.
So, if you told me it was Duke, Memphis in a Sweet 16, and then Duke, Kansas State in the Elite 8, I think they've got a pretty easy path there.
Yeah. So my Final Four, I have Marquette out of that out of there. I agree with you what you said earlier about Purdue being a vulnerable team. I think they're a good team, but I also think that the Big Ten is overhyped. I'll be the first to say that. They've been the niche conference the last couple of years, and they really haven't done anything in the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think they had a team make it past the Sweet 16 last year.
Nope. And then, I mean, as much as grief as they gave the ACC won their Big Ten matchup. 8-6
without State.
Without State, correct. So I don't buy in the hype of the Big Ten. I think they've got some good teams. I don't think they're as dominant as they're made out to be. I would argue that the Big 12 is the best conference in all of college basketball.
Yeah.
But that's just my 2 cents. So I have Marquette out of the East. Rock Chalk Jayhawk out of the West. I think Kansas is going to be there. I agreed with you. I think Texas is going to come out of the Midwest, just because of that injury to Sasser at Houston.
Yeah,
that's a big injury. Yep. And then Alabama coming out of our bracket, and I have said it all along. I think Kansas repeats. They're my national champion.
Okay.
So
repeat.
That's my yeah. I think they're too good. I think they brought back a lot of that team.
They did.
And like, there's something to be said about coaching. Bill Self would be the best coach in that Final Four. Now Shaka Smart is at Marquette, so he's a good coach, and he's been to the Final Four before. But I think when you get down in the tournament time and crunch time, it's all about coaching and matchups and getting the right things in. So I think it's Kansas. But another stat that I heard today was pretty interesting with Michigan State. Tom Izzo, 25 years in a row he's made the tournament.
Wow,
that's impressive. Like, and you have to wonder how much longer he's got. But anyway, so those are our picks. This was kind of an off the cuff. Like, let's put something together. There'll be more stuff coming out in the middle of the week. Obviously, we'll be dropping a lot of analytics. Yeah.
Well, this will be in the past.
Watch party.
That'll be in the past by this point, but
yeah. But anyway, real quick. So NC State as an 11 seed playing Creighton on Friday in Denver, 4:00 Eastern on TNT. So make sure you tune in and find that on your local channels. But that'll wrap it up for our NC State NCAA basketball preview. As always, if you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you follow us at Tuffy Talk now. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit that. Make sure you hit the bell to be notified so you don't miss when any of our content comes out. All right, well, Wolfpack Nation, that'll do it for this round of Tuffy Talk. We appreciate y'all, and as always, go Pack.